What up, and welcome to the Roundtable. I am your host, Brad Wakai, alongside my co-host, Tyson Gentry. Tyson, how are we doing today?
I'm good, man. Back at it. This was a quick little turnaround for us, but this is what you get news like this, you get the NFL wildcard getting set up. It's just what it is.
Exactly, and we're going to have another quick turnaround because Tyson and I are going to be making you money. That's going to be our next podcast. We're going to dive in our gambling picks, so a little roadmap for you about how this week's going to go. So everybody's going to be making money with Tyson and myself and the Roundtable. We got a sick little parlay that's going to come at you. That's going to be fun for everybody. But before we do that, Tyson, we got to do recap. We got to get down to business. We're going to break these games down as we see it, just from how teams can win and how they can't. So I mean, I guess since we got a lot to get into, let's just go ahead and start right into week 18 on the recap. So, a lot of things happened. Tyson, on the previous episode, we discussed records, playoff implications. To you, what was the biggest thing that happened in week 18?
I think it was us coming on the podcast and essentially saying that Indianapolis hasn't beaten Jacksonville in 5 years, and we had a weird feeling about the game. And then they lost, but it wasn't us that did that. Them losing is actually, I think, what the biggest thing in week 18 was. This isn't quite the level of, I think it was 2007 Chargers or whatever, that were like top 10 or whatever in both offense and defense statistics and missed the playoffs. Colts struggled a little bit at times this year, but there was a stretch in the middle of the season where they looked not like a playoff team, but like one of the better teams in the entire NFL. They were beating the Patriots and the Cardinals kind of back to back right there. Jonathan Taylor going crazy. And now they're sitting there with $105 million tied into Carson Wentz going forward. No first round pick, no playoff appearance, in a worse position right now than they were a year ago, losing Phillip Rivers. And there is an out for them on Carson Wentz at $15 million this year if they cut him. They owe him 17, so if they cut him, realistically, it's like saving $2 million in the long run. But I think then what? Because you don't even have your own pick. So this went from like, oh my God, like, can you believe that they pull off all these amazing trades and they draft so well, to now it's like, that didn't work. Back to the drawing board.
It's definitely eye opening, and for somebody myself, I think more of a Carson Wentz guy and was on that train a lot longer than you were. Because you bailed, once you saw it writing on the wall with Wentz, you were out of there, and I was on that train still. I was ready to ride that thing home, but that was it was and it what and I will say this, Carson Wentz is getting the blame as he should. Like, he was really bad. He was terrible in that game. But the offensive line was atrocious. I mean, they couldn't block Jacksonville, they couldn't block. And this is an offensive line and a unit that's supposed to be one of the top ones in the league. And they got pushed around.
I resent that. I think that their offensive line thing, sorry to cut you off,
No,
but
you're
it
good.
feels like, remember when the Cowboys one year had a dominant offensive line and then all those guys got famous? And now we're like 12 years down the line and people are like, well, this offensive line is so good. You got all, but now they're just names. That's kind of what it feels like a little bit in Indianapolis. Like, Quentin Nelson is awesome, and you go down the list and they're all awesome, but they're all hurt at different times. It feels like, so
I
they
get
haven't
what you're
been that.
saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I get that. But I will say, I mean, they started playing really well, when they were on that win streak. They're mashing teams and they're moving, just basically out physicaling teams. I mean, they went in and they just dominated New England. Like, they just pushed them around. And you're like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
this offensive line's legit. They got punked on Sunday by Jacksonville, like a team who didn't have anything to play for. I mean, that was really bad. And then the other thing too is, and I love Frank Reich, and I know you do, but we can't let him off the hook. To have your
No.
team in a do or die situation, not just against the Jags, 2 weeks in a row that it was winning in, they couldn't do it. The Raiders previously, that's inexcusable from that standpoint as well. I mean, that it was just all time bad what the Colts did.
Oh, it was catastrophic, really, and it's gonna get swept under the rug. I think, at the end of this year, we're not even gonna remember, but this could be like a sliding doors moment in the NFL where they could have. I think they could have went on a run and played in the AFC Championship game, or potentially even the Super Bowl with the way they've looked against the best in the division and kind of the role they were on there. But now it might be like, if you're Chris Ballard, you're sitting in your office like, what the hell am I supposed to do? Everyone thought Carson Wentz going back to Frank Reich was going to fix a lot of the problems that he had. He's the same guy. He clearly isn't as bad as he was his last season in Philadelphia, but he's nowhere near even the 2018 version of him after the year after the torn ACL. And I will say, it feels good a little bit that if Jalen Hurts plays one half of football this week, he now has more playoff football than Carson Wentz. I was a big Carson fan for a long time, but he, I'm not saying I'm like happy he lost, but I don't necessarily root for his success the way that I wish I could.
No, I get what you're saying. I mean, as an Eagles fan, when we're coming at it like this, you dump what the salary costs for Carson. You get an asset and what was going to be the second round pick or could turn into a first. Well, that turned into a first round pick. And then you get Jalen Hurts, who's a consummate leader, works really hard. Guys seem to like him, which was rumors around the building that Carson wasn't that guy. And then not only that, but in what was supposed to be a rebuild year for the Eagles, they're in the playoffs. And we just saw the guy who we just paid a shit ton of money to that we just dumped in a trade fail to get his team in the playoffs. So as an Eagles fan, it feels fantastic. We got this young guy with this young players and we're in the playoffs and wow, the Colts are in a conundrum and the Eagles are like basically we could just keep building this thing. And it does feel good, I got to say.
It is a weird way to segue here, kind of, but the other team that the Eagles possess their first round pick is the Miami Dolphins. And that didn't, the news with Miami firing Brian Flores didn't happen on Sunday. It was Black Monday. So I guess I don't know if it technically counts as a week 18 recap, but what the hell, man?
Yeah. I mean, so here's the thing. When I first saw that, I'm like, what is going on in Miami, right? And it's not like we're talking about an organization like the Steelers or the Patriots or even the Packers, right? Where they're just like, if they do something, you kind of give the benefit of the doubt to the organization. You're like, okay, maybe something was going on there. You saw the Dolphins, and my first reaction was like, what the hell are they doing in Miami? Like after how they started and how they finished the season, like you're not going to give this guy another year now. So that's my first reaction. Now what's come out is his interpersonal relationships are horrible. Players started to resent him, which of course you're going to have the outpouring of support, like, oh no, we love Coach Flo, this and that. There are guys in that locker room that hated him. There are guys that didn't like it. Minka Fitzpatrick blasted him on the way out of Miami. So you're going to get both sides of this thing. So I think now my opinion is I think it's idiotic on the Dolphins' part to let him go and side with a failed general manager, or at least a general manager who's done a bad job in Chris Greer over a young head coach who, listen, he's going to be able to name his job. Like he's already gotten an interview with the Bears. He's probably going to get one with the Giants. The Jags would be crazy not to interview him. The Broncos would be crazy. I mean, you're going to let that guy out your door and leave in a GM who can't build an offensive line to save his life and pass on Justin Herbert over Tua. Now, coming from me, of course, I'm doing hindsight 2020. I would have taken Tua because I loved him at a school, but it just feels like Chris Greer has a longer leash than what they gave Brian Flores, which I think what you're alluding to was the biggest what the hell moment out of that firing.
Yes. And since Stephen Ross purchased the Dolphins, they've had 4 winning seasons. And Brian Flores is responsible for 2 of them in the last 3 years. Took over the absolute dumpster fire post Adam Gase Miami Dolphins. They went 5-11, which, if you remember at the time, everyone was like, "Holy smokes!" They were anticipated. It was like there was actual odds up on the internet if they could lose to Bama, or if they would lose to Bama if they played. Bama's quarterback was Tua. They take Tua over Herbert, and I think that's a lot of where this whole thing started. I understand that Flores' relationships weren't great, and everything that you read, he's very good at the X's and O's, and he's very good at coaching football, but he doesn't seem to care as much about the other things. But in order to be relevant and stay around, you got to play the game a little bit in the NFL. That's why all these dudes, every time somebody gets fired, it's like the same guys are sitting around there to be the interim coach, or the offensive coordinator who hasn't had a top 20 offense ever once bounces around the league for 15 years because people like him. I wish that it didn't happen because I would like to see Miami turn themselves around. They're quietly as bad as Jacksonville or the Jets or Houston, whatever organization you want to name in the last 20 years of the NFL. Miami is as bad or worse than all of them. And this is just another step towards ensuring that stays the case. Who's going to want to go take that job right now? You're locked into a quarterback that you probably don't want. You have a general manager who's outlasted every other coach that's been there. You have a guy that just went 10-6 and then 9-7, beat Bill Belichick. He went like 3-1 or 4-2 or something against Belichick while he was there, and he got kicked out the door. No offensive talent, draft capital depleted a little bit. It's just like, what the fuck are you thinking? Like, this isn't the year to do it. If you want to do it, wait till see how next season goes and get rid of him. Don't be the first. Like, the fact that they were the first ones to do it, I guess, kind of was like, what in the world?
I know. Like here's the thing. I wake up early, and I woke up and I missed the Adam Schefter report. I'm like, seriously, like. That's what you decided after beating Bill Belichick and the Patriots? Like, he owns Bill Belichick. He has for the past, like, 3 years. Like, what do you okay, so you just wanna be irrelevant in the division? Are you kidding me? Like, it just makes no sense. Like,
Yeah.
they better have the biggest home run hire in their back pocket, or that thing is a tinderbox because the Bills have their coach and quarterback. The Patriots, I mean, say what you want about Mac Jones. All we know he's not going to lose you football games. Now, he may not win them for you as of now, but he's not going to lose you games. And obviously, you have Belichick. As long as he wants to coach, he's going to be elite. And then the Jets and the Jets, with Saleh and Zach Wilson. I mean, wasn't a great first year, but there's energy there. There's belief that this thing can turn around. They have huge assets in the offseason that they can go and get, whether it's free agents or if they want to have a good draft from Joe Douglas, our old Eagles man. Like, that thing could turn around quick. This is the NFL again. The Dolphins, apparently they just want to be cellar dwellers. Like, I just don't understand what they're thinking.
And for it to all be based on, or a lot of it to be based on the Tua relationship, I think is going to get real interesting here as Miami kind of goes forward, whether they stick with Tua, go with the trade, whatever. Because somebody else coming in the door is going to be like, that's not.
I didn't
I'm going
draft
to
him. I don't
evaluate
want
it.
him.
Yeah,
Right?
I don't. Yeah, it runs a completely different kind of. I don't know. It's going to be weird. But the bad stay bad.
That's what it is. I mean, that's a great statement. So the other thing for listeners out there, Tyson and I think we're going to have a great analysis on head coaching openings in the NFL, just kind of what we'll do. And we'll kind of put ourselves in a GM position. What would we decide? How are we going to do it? I know we previously done it on an old podcast that we used to do, but we want to bring it to you here on the roundtable. So that's something to look forward to that we'll get into when it's not as much X's and O's on the field. I'd be remiss, Tyson, if I didn't mention that insane Chargers Raiders game that
Was
really
that
capped off. I
the
mean, oh
best
my
game of
God.
the year or
Had
the
to have
last?
been.
And it was a lot. That's what I was thinking. But then I was like, is this prisoner of the moment type stuff?
But here's the thing, though, if you think all the ramifications that go with that
Exactly.
game, like
Exactly.
these teams could have taken a knee, and then it was like, okay, now the Raiders jump out to the early lead. It's like, man, the Chargers are missing the playoffs. And the Chargers come storming back. You're like, oh, of course, it's the Raiders. They always choke.
Yep.
They'll never make the playoff. That's like, wow, Derek Carr's actually like good. Like, you just took it on the chin, went right down there. And then you had the Chargers with the ball needing to
For
tie the game
so
up for,
long.
it felt like an hour. Like, that was insane. It was like 19 plays that lasted real game time 2 minutes, but real time lifetime an hour. Like, it was,
Yep.
and it was just so dramatic. And then the fact that you knew in the back of your mind, if they tie, Steelers are out. It was insane. The fact that it went to overtime, then it went to 3 seconds left in overtime. I was like, you know what these teams should do is just take a knee, because that'd be the most Chargers Raiders thing I could imagine. But that game was unbelievable. That had to have been the best game of the year.
It was so awesome. And one of the cool things about it, I think, for me watching it was I wasn't on the train that if the Chargers lost, it was going to be indicative of how Herbert plays in big games. But he did so well, I thought, on that fourth quarter, leading the
Oh my
comeback,
God.
and then on that fourth quarter drive, the patience, the poise, the ability to know how to manipulate the field, how to manipulate the coverage to get what he wanted. And then the touchdown pass, which was a bullet into the stomach of Mike Williams that he looked off the coverage to even get him open in the first place. Them losing the game, it was like, I wanted to see Herbert in the playoffs.
Right.
But the way he conducted himself and his team on that drive told me as much as I think that I need to know going forward. Because if they, first of all, before I get into that, everybody stop with they messed up calling the timeout. The Raiders were just going to tie him. You think the Raiders want to go to Kansas City?
Right.
Like they were going to be like, okay, well, I mean, it's just a nice thing to do.
Yeah, we want our rivals in
Yeah,
so we can go
exactly.
get stomped by Kansas City because we won
Yes.
there so many times.
This is not the NCAA where you get paid by the production of the rest of your conference or your
Right.
division. This was real life football. But yeah, I thought it was an awesome game. I was a little disappointed in Brandon Staley. We've talked about that specifically with him 3 or 4 times this year. Of just we don't give a shit if the analytics say that it's the right play. Sometimes you're just like, what was the upside? If that worked.
You're talking about going for it on their own 19
Yes.
on 4th and 1. They got promptly stopped because it was I don't know. Like let's say you get a first down here, then what? You get maybe 2 more and then you're punting from the 50
That's what I'm saying.
or you're just going to go for it on 4th and 12 from the 50 because that's apparently what you do. Like, or here's the other thing: if you're going to go for it on your own 19, just go for it every time. Like, why do you have a punter?
Yeah, exactly.
So I agree. I don't know. That was nuts. And like, of course, people. Well, I love the aggression from Brandon Staley. Like, I like aggression too. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. But in spots,
Yeah,
like,
do it from somebody else's 19.
yeah, that's a good idea. It was crazy.
Yeah, that was bold. He made some very questionable decisions, but overall, I mean, I think it played out pretty close to perfect. I think
Week 18 was unbelievable.
it was really good. There were some, like we were saying on the last podcast, it was like, oh, that's not going to happen, and then it was like, oh my god,
We're
like,
just watching it unfold. It's like, oh my god.
first game of the day, pretty much. I think it was the first one that ended. It was close to it. Jaguars, absolutely. That game was over like halftime. It was
Yeah,
like, oh
I
my
mean,
god.
they kicked the Jags just kicked the Colts' ass. That was crazy. And then you combine that with the Steelers Ravens
Yep.
overtime game, and that's the first window. You got Rams Niners, which was a slugfest. It looked like the Rams were going to knock them out. Oh, McVay gets his revenge on Shanahan. Second half, that team flipped the switch, and here come the Niners throwing haymakers. Jimmy G was unbelievable in the second half. I mean, Deebo Samuel was just dominant.
Best football player in the league.
Woo, I mean, that game
And
was, and then that's the game you're like, man, that nothing can top this. Then you had the insanity of the Raiders and Chargers. I mean, what a great week.
Oh, it was perfect. It was about as good as it gets. I learned some things from playoff hopefuls and contenders. I confirmed some things about some of these teams, and then other games like the Eagles Cowboys game. There's nothing to gather from watching backups, or like the Packers game. It was a fun game to watch, but I didn't learn anything new about Green Bay.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, Tyson, let's put a bow on week 18. Let's touch on this because I think people are curious. It's a big topic. The Brandon Staley failings, the Carson Wentz, Frank Reich failings for the Colts. To you, both these teams didn't get in because they lost. What's the bigger disappointment to you, the Colts or the Chargers?
Indianapolis, 100% to me. Just preseason, knowing the expectations on this team, and maybe not publicly, like maybe ESPN didn't have them as a Super Bowl contender, but you don't go out and make a trade for Carson. You don't trade a first-round pick for a quarterback without that being the goal immediately, honestly. For a guy in Carson Wentz that coaching staff knows, you trust, you think he can play in your system, especially when you're a playoff team with the ghost of Phillip Rivers. It's like, we'll just trade for this guy and we'll be able to compete. And then looking as good as they looked for a bit this season, and then the way that they lost was just like, that is the epitome of choking to me, is to play the worst team possible. They're playing, literally the only thing they're trying to do is ruin your season. And we've seen it so many times go both ways. But if Indianapolis would have came out and just grinded their way down, just outwilled them, I think they would have got it. I'm gonna stick with the Colts, but there is a couple thoughts on the Chargers that are pretty disappointing as well.
I I think that's great. Great answer from you. I mean, you basically explained it perfectly. When you're talking about the Colts, like the magnitude of this, like in terms of gambling, I mean, they were like 15 and a half, 16-point favorites. Like they were supposed to dominate this game. And it wasn't like, oh, they got a little unlucky, the Jaguars go down, kick a field goal. No, like they got pushed around the field
Mm-hmm.
by a team, and I want to make this very clear, who won this game and still has the first overall pick. Like that's how bad the Jaguars season has been. That's how bad that roster's been. I mean, it's unbelievable. So I hate to do it, but I agree with you, man. The Colts, that was just so disappointing, especially with the form they were coming in. You felt like they were building to something. Like they were
Yep.
building to the playoffs. They were physical. They were establishing the ball or the run with Jonathan Taylor, utilizing Carson Wentz's strengths with play action. Oh, T.Y. Hilton starting to get help. Like it just felt like everything was building in the right direction. And to have a heartbreaking loss to the Raiders, like, okay, that happens. They had some COVID concerns, kind of running through it. So, away from the facility, it happens. Okay, but hey, we need one win. Let's go down to Jacksonville and let's just dominate this team that we outclass on any given Sunday. And they looked that poor was just inexcusable. And I'm trying to come up with more adjectives to describe how bad the performance was. And here's the thing. It wasn't like the defense was really good too. It was just the offense was really good. Like the defense got shredded.
Yeah, Trevor Lawrence looked like a good above average level quarterback, which he might be, but he hasn't looked like one all year.
For the defense to perform that way in the biggest game was terrible. Obviously, we've talked about the offense. It was just all-time bad stuff. So, yeah, Colts most disappointing for sure. But real quick, Tyson, go ahead and give me your thoughts on the Chargers then. You said you had some disappointment.
I just haven't heard hardly anybody or read anything of people talking at all about the Chargers losing to the Texans 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
That if they win that game, which is essentially, it's nearly the exact same circumstance that we're shredding the Colts for. It just happened a week earlier, so then we forgot about it because the implications were bigger. This game would have had none for the Chargers if they just taken care of the Texans, who, much like the Jaguars, ran all over them, just pushed them around, playing for nothing besides pride, and all honesty are probably less talented overall than Jacksonville, and they crushed the Chargers, and we just let it slide. So to me, it's like 6-1, and really comparing these two teams, the Chargers just have Justin Herbert and a rookie head coach kind of let these things slide. Colts are looking at a Frank Reich, established head coach, and then a guy who has played a half of a quarter in postseason football. I mean, it would have been nice for them to win one to show that they can do it, but Indianapolis is moving themselves into that you got to show me tier.
I get you. I agree with you there, especially with how high we were on the Colts coming in. We're going to have to reevaluate going into the next season about just where they are as a franchise. Got to see what Chris Ballard does in the offseason as well. See what he brings in. But that's another discussion for later down the road. Tyson, I can't wait, baby. The NFL playoffs are here. They're ready to go. We got TV time set. We got the schedule. We got the bracket. So I'm going to go ahead and run through it here before we dive into each of the games that Tyson and I are going to preview. So I'll go through it quick. So your final standings in the NFC. Packers get the bye with the 1 seed. Bucks finish with the 2nd seed. Cowboys 3, Rams 4 by winning the division. The Cardinals, who had been the 1st seed basically all season long, they finish at the 5 seed after going 1-4 their last 5 games. Niners get in at the 6th seed and Eagles in at the 7th seed. So that's the NFC side. Now, obviously, if you listen to the last podcast, you kind of know some of the scenarios that were going on in the NFC. Tyson, your Niners are in. That's a dangerous team to you.
Scary.
How big of a game changer is the fact that the 49ers got in, and they don't have to see like a Trevor Siemian led Saints team. You got to see the bullies in San Francisco.
I just think that for many teams in the NFL, at this level, everyone's ready to play everybody. But there's something in the back of people's minds. It just, never been in the locker room with these guys, but it feels that way watching the games. But it's like, God damn it. Like these guys, it doesn't matter what we do. These guys are coming to hit us for 60 minutes straight. We could be up by 30 or we could be down by 30, and they're going to just keep coming. And they kind of got, I think, a dream matchup for them in the first round out of all these teams. You disagree, but I think the way that Dallas has been playing as of late sets up really nice for San Francisco to be able to come in there and just try to bully them. And I think that Dallas is the one team outside of the Rams, which we've seen the Niners do it to twice now, that I really think they can just show up and bully somebody into a slugfest. And that's, I think, all it's going to take is Elijah Mitchell 100 yards on the ground, Deebo Samuel's getting the ball over and over again. Now Dak only gets 6 possessions in a game rather than having as 10 of them, right? This is now, it's like you got to be real efficient and score every time, because Dallas can score a lot of points, but it's this season, certainly it's coming off of mistakes by the offense. And if San Francisco plays their brand of football and Jimmy Garoppolo is closer to the guy in the second half last week than he is to the guy that was in the first half last week, San Francisco is going to win this game.
It's gonna be a good one. I can't wait for that one. And yeah, I think you're right. I mean, when you talk about the Niners, like who wants to play these guys? I mean, they're gonna just man up, push you around, hit you in the mouth, and you're gonna have to raise that level, or else they're gonna embarrass you. Going over the AFC side here, number 1 seed Titans, they get the bye. Big time performance from the Titans getting this bye without Derrick Henry. I don't know how many people thought this was going to happen, even in Nashville.
Well, isn't that was our preseason AFC dark horse to win the AFC? I think, at least I think it was mine.
So it might have been yours. We'll go through the tapes.
Should I just throw my Venmo on here now for
just
people that? Okay, no.
We'll wait after the big super wild card week, as they call it.
After that's the stupidest name.
Hey, it's super wild card, baby. Let's go. Chiefs looked like they were in the coffin. They rose out, the 2 seed, right where the Chiefs were, kind of where we expected them. We didn't expect it to be this roller coaster of a journey, but they're there at the 2 seed. Bills are the 3 seed, winning the division after look like they were at dire straits to lose it. Bengals finished with the 4 seed division winners. How about that? Worst to first for the Bengals there. Raiders with the 5th seed, Patriots with the 6th seed, shockingly, and then the Steelers rounding out with the back door, getting in at the 7th seed. Man, is there anybody more happy than the Titans and the Chiefs to see the Raiders and the Steelers in the playoffs instead of the Colts and the Chargers? I mean, man, what a bullet those teams dodged.
Not only those guys, I think, like, if you went and asked the guys in Cincinnati, if you were like, hey, honestly, Indianapolis or Vegas, who would you rather play? I think we all know the answer to that. So the AFC it's a mess, honestly. And none of these teams have really separated themselves this season. Tennessee is the one, but they haven't looked like a 1 seed since Derrick Henry got hurt. They got some fortunate scheduling along with just being a good team and eking out close wins, but not once in that stretch where it was like, okay, they're doing this without Henry. It was just like, how are they doing this without Henry? More so.
Right. Like, we were like, no, this can't be real. This is fool's gold. Derrick Henry's not there. It's like, actually, the running scheme is really good.
Yep.
It's crazy. They just threw Dante Foreman back there. It's like somebody, I forget who I was talking to. We're like, man, the Derrick Henry replacement's pretty good.
Yeah.
Like, don't even know his name. It's like, oh, Derrick Henry backup. Yeah, he's good. I'm like, yeah, the offensive line just mauls you.
He get cut from the Texans.
Oh yeah, that's right.
That's how good the Derrick Henry replacement. That's and after a torn Achilles, that's a good scheme when you're picking up other people's injured, kind of also rans and then turning them into not household names, but everybody knows you're Derrick Henry's backup.
Right, exactly. That's his new household name. It's like, hey, Derrick Henry's backup. I'm like, oh, perfect.
It doesn't help that, like, they both have the dreads, like, the hair coming out of the helmet,
and like the single digit number,
right? And they're both huge.
Yeah,
so I think that might confuse people.
But I agree with you, man. I think the AFC is wide open. I think we think we have an idea, Chiefs, maybe Bills, but I don't know. It's gonna be a crapshoot. I think. I think people are gonna be surprised by what happens in the AFC.
Absolutely. Yeah, this one it could get real funky really fast, which would be awesome.
Okay. Well, that's the bracket. That's the NFL playoffs that we got going on right now. But what Tyson and I are going to do right now, and again, I want to reiterate, we're not giving picks for this. What we're doing is we are breaking down these games, like what we expect from each of these games. We'll be giving out picks, gambling selections, and giving out opinions, official opinions on the next podcast we do before Super Wildcard Weekend to make you some money, make us look smart. But right now we're gonna talk football. We're getting into the film room and we're gonna break this baby down. So let's start with the first one: Raiders at Bengals. It's gonna be a 4:35 Eastern time game on NBC. So kind of weird the NBC is getting the afternoon,
Yep.
and then the later game CBS is the night game. But I digress. That's a random point here. What do you, Tyson? Raiders Bengals, man. I mean, what a matchup here. Obviously, Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, blah blah blah. What do you kind of see as a strength that the Bengals can exploit against the Raiders? And just kind of take me through your first impression of this.
Well, kind of when I was thinking about this game earlier, it was to me it was Burrow's quick trigger and ability to process and kind of hit things quick is going to help them beat the Raiders. But then I went back and I looked, and Burrow's time to throw because they did play earlier this season, and Burrow's time to throw in that game was right about average with the rest of his games of the year. He wasn't hurried, he wasn't pressured, he barely got hit all game. And so I was like, well, how did that happen? Max Crosby had one hurry in that game. And if you watched the game against the Chargers or watched much of the Raiders at all this year, he might be the most impressive underrated player right now in the league. I bet if you asked, if you polled 100 people, very, very few of them are going to know who he is. And he had, I think, 50 more pressures and 40 more hurries or something like that than TJ Watt had this year. He just happened to have like 17 less sacks, which isn't nothing, right? That's a huge number, but he was around the quarterback a whole lot. So he has to play better. Like that's what it is to me. I think you can't blitz Joe Burrow. He's shown over and over again. You especially can't zero blitz him. If you leave no help, especially those Vegas if Trufont's out there on either Chase Higgins or Boyd, it's barbecue chicken. He's getting cooked, and the Bengals are moving all over the field. Pass rush has to get home. Have to move Burrow off his spot. Have to make him uncomfortable and frustrated, which isn't necessarily a perfect strategy because Kansas City did that pretty well, and he still threw for 500.
That was my analysis too. It's like, how does the Bengals offensive line hold up against the Raiders pass rush? Because I think that's the key here. You have to make Joe Burrow uncomfortable, to your point. Like, he can't just sit back there and pick out his star-studded receiving core. Like,
He's too good, and they're too good.
exactly. Like, you have to make him uncomfortable here. And so last week that Tyson mentioned, like in the Chargers game, Rashawn Slater versus Yannick Ngakoue. Okay, who can win this matchup? Slater majority of the time. Ngakoue some pressures, but Max Crosby on the other side, they don't have anybody who can match up with him. Now, the difference is both these bookend tackles for the Bengals can't match up with either of these guys. And in the first meeting, they did do a good job of slowing down the pass rush. Now, I don't think that's going to happen in this one. I think the Raiders are going to get after the passer a lot. So that's my first key here that I'm paying attention to. Pass rush for the Raiders versus the O-line for the Bengals, easily their weakest unit. And I'd say maybe the best unit for the Raiders that is that pass rushing specialty that they have. So that's my big thing. Now, offensively for the Raiders, Tyson, do you think that they're going to be able to establish Josh Jacobs? Because it feels like when he's established, Derek Carr is much more settled, much more comfortable, more accurate with the throws. Like, he plays better off play action, like kind of getting his feet involved. Do you think that the Raiders are going to be able to establish the run in this one?
That's going to be interesting. It's something that they definitely have to do. I don't know positively if they can, but they have to do it if they want to win this game. They're going to have to control the clock, win the turnover battle. Plus, like you said, when Josh Jacobs is rolling, they go from a average team to a good team, like a genuine playoff team when he's moving around. When they were dominating the Chargers on Sunday, Josh Jacobs was dominating the Chargers. And then when he checked out, I think he checked himself out of the game at one point um, for injury or whatever. And then all of a sudden it was a slow descent downhill. So I think it really just going to come down to uh, kind of if they can scheme that to make that happen, because Cincinnati's rush defense is better, I think, than people give it credit for. But this Oakland offensive or Vegas, this Vegas offensive line, I think is a little bit underrated at spots, and they're not necessarily they're not one of the top offensive lines in the league. They're just super, super physical, road grader type guys up there. And once they get rolling, it's pretty impressive. The problem is they have to establish that run early, because otherwise they could be staring at 14-0 quick.
And then you could become one-dimensional, and then now you're, hey, Derek, go out and do this, and
throw it to Zay Jones.
Throw it to Zay Jones, and I think Derek Carr's a good, solid quarterback. I like him. I don't love him, and we discussed kind of trying to find some reasons on the show why we feel that way, but I'm wondering if they can't establish it early, if they keep bashing their head against the wall and like, okay, we need to do this. Like, let's say Josh Jacobs has like 8 carries for 16 yards, like 2 yards of rush, nothing's going on. Feels like, you're just kind of wasting a play there. Are they patient enough to stick with that, or are they just going to go, okay, Derek, go into the shotgun and let's throw the ball around the yard?
That's interesting too, because is it Bisaccia? That's how you say his name?
Yeah.
Yeah. He's coaching with nothing to lose. Like absolutely nothing. If this was somebody else, like, and they might, have the patience to do that, he's probably in his head like, we're just going to play some fuck it, chuck it, throw the ball around the yard, try to beat these guys football. It's going to be fun. I already have proven myself. If he wins this game, he's guaranteed.
Oh man,
right?
has to
So
be.
maybe there is a little bit more pressure, but he
True.
should already be number one for the coaching job that he's done after the Gruden kind of malfunction, meltdown, or whatever you want to call it in the organization, and then the Henry Ruggs thing. For them to be even in the playoffs is impressive. But to answer your question, I'd give him more than 8 carries. I think he's the most important player they have.
I think I think he should get 20 carries. But I'm just wondering how patient they're going to be, because like you mentioned, if the pass rush doesn't get home, this thing could get ugly in that secondary for the Raiders. And so if they do get behind, they're going to be playing a lot of catch up, and I just don't see them having the patience to run the ball when, okay, Derek, go out and just start throwing this thing around. And I feel like that's where the Raiders can get in big time trouble in this game.
Absolutely.
Okay. Now, other Saturday game, the night slate here, Patriots at Bills, 8:15 Eastern on CBS. Now, this is a trilogy here. Obviously, two division foes. I'd say probably two rivals, just the way that these two have been kind of ascending and descending at the same time, fighting for position. Bills have won the AFC East twice, 2 years in a row. They have a young stud quarterback, Josh Allen, coach in McDermott, who really wants to prove himself. And, well, the Patriots and Mac Jones, right? So, to me, it's going to be about this. Can Josh Allen be comfortable enough to take what Bill Belichick is giving him? Because Bill's going to try to bait Josh into turning the ball over, into making bad throws, and trying to win it all in one play. And next, okay, here's a couple 3-and-outs, or, we saw at the 40 and we got a punt there. And then you limit the possessions of the Bills, and all of a sudden, well, the Patriots, wow, they have a chance to go down and kick a game-winning field goal. Like, I feel like that's how Bill's going to game plan this, is bait Josh Allen into being overly aggressive, trying to win it all in one play, and then be able to just do enough on offense to go down and have a chance to win this one. So that's what I'm paying attention to. How does Josh Allen attack the defense of the Patriots? Because in the second game, he shredded them up with checkdowns. He took what the defense gave him. They crushed the Patriots. The first game, weather induced, all that, but I think that impacted, like, when he threw the ball, he really went for the home run there. But we've seen Josh Allen in other games. He just tries too hard or tries to make that big play, and that's where he gets into trouble.
I think I'm almost completely opposite than you on this one. I
Okay.
think you said, "How does Josh Allen attack the Patriots?" I want to know how the Patriots are going to attack Josh Allen because I
Mm.
think he just played. It was his third best statistical game of the year, I think, in that one when they lined up against each other. But it was, I think, the best game he's played all season, especially for what it meant
Yeah.
against not just like an average. This wasn't him versus the Jaguars or something like that. He was playing a division rival with the best defensive head coach ever. So, how does Belichick and that defense, and I guess little Belichick, how do they game plan to now stop Josh Allen? Because he basically was like, okay, I'll just check down, check down, check down. And okay, now I'm taking off to run, and now I'm taking off to run. Oh, you took a step forward, and now I got a touchdown. So it was like, okay, we're gonna get this guy because he's immature and he turns the ball over a lot. And he was just like, I'm not doing that today. And they dominated. And so it's on the Patriots instead of trying to bait him out, it's to make those things happen, I think, because if he plays the same mature way, I don't know how much New England can even do.
I think they get smoked if they try to do if they do the same thing, if they have the same game plan they did in the second meeting between these two teams. I think they'll get ran off the field. Patriots offense-wise, now we know what they did in the first game, right? They just ran the ball. Mac Jones, didn't throw it. He threw the ball 3 times, I think. Patriots in the second game had to play from behind. Mac had to throw the ball a little bit more. That's those interceptions. Kind of made a comeback a little bit. Here's the other thing. I'm curious to know how the Patriots game plan offensively. Like, are they going to be like, let's run the ball, let's establish it, let's see if the Bills can stop this first, or are they just going to be cute and be like, well, they think we're going to run it, so why don't we do a basic play action game and run everything and then run the ball to pass the ball type of deal. So if that makes sense, like, hey, I'm going to pass the ball consistently. Let's just run the ball when we need to, or run the ball when they don't expect us to run it. That type of deal. That doesn't seem like a Belichick DNA type of deal, but he also does things game plan to game plan, week to week. So that's something I'm keeping my eye on, especially against the Bills defense, who's kind of vulnerable in the secondary, has gotten their manhood challenged by teams, coaches across the league, and then the media members. Hey, you guys are soft. How do you give up so many rushing yards? I want to see how this defense responds to that, and if they make a statement in this one.
They have to, because if New England's able to run the ball, and I think that is what they're going to come out trying to do. That's just how they play. That's just kind of who they are. They haven't shown otherwise, hardly at all throughout the last 18 weeks. So I'm just kind of assuming they're going to come in here like, this is what we do. Stop us. And Buffalo has shown once that they can handle them, and they showed once. Granted, it was in a blizzard, but it still counts. Patriots played in a blizzard too, and they ran for 1,000,000,000 yards
Yeah.
on them in that game. And if they get something closer to the first game, because if they do an exact replica, it's been the wildest game in the history of the sport. But if Mac Jones only has to throw it 22 times, Patriots are in a good spot.
Tyson, this is the main event for us, baby. We got starting off Sunday. Eagles go down to Tampa. Kickoff at 1:05 p.m. Eastern on Fox. Now, I know what everybody's saying. Our Eagles, they're going to get ran out of the field at Raymond James down in Tampa. Now, Tyson, we don't think so. Now, we'll save our predictions. We think it's going to be closer than people think on Sunday for good reason as well. I think you've analyzed this game. We've been texting each other. You got this game analyzed in some sort of fashion. So why don't you share that info with this audience?
Yeah, it's super deep analytics. It's stuff nobody else but me knows how
It's
to
Brandon
do.
Staley analytics.
Yeah. Yeah. So basically, if the Eagles go for it on their own one every time. Um, basically, my biggest thing on this game, and it wouldn't be any different if it was the Chargers playing the Raiders on Sunday night. Like, I would feel the same way. The number one rush team in the NFL, who, by the way, was averaging like 15 carries a game up until the midway point, and then blew everybody out of the water. So if you go from the midway point of the season to now, far and away the best rushing team in the NFL is going up against what we thought was the best rush defense in the league, but they've been 21st in the league since that same midway point when the Eagles absolutely, started running for 200, 300 yards on people. Tampa Bay has been really struggling. The Eagles, the way they play defense under Jonathan Gannon's scheme, is kind of allowing a lot of underneath passes, the bend but don't break style, but not quite in the same way as years past. But they struggle with really talented wide receivers. And, everybody struggles with it. Not like this. Derek Carr, Justin Herbert, I think everybody but Mahomes and Garoppolo until like week
Dak just
10.
shredded him up.
But they all completed like 75, 80% of their
Yeah.
passes but that's not necessarily going on anymore. Tom Brady has the chance to do that, but he's not throwing to Chris Godwin. He's not throwing to Antonio Brown. Darius Slay has been, I think he's Pro Football Focus's number 2 corner in the league this season. So they have the tools to make this a lot closer game than I think people give them credit for. If you go back and watch when they played the first time, it was a 6-point Buccaneers victory, I believe, that was aided by one of the worst taunting calls of the year. This year gave them a free 15 on their last drive there. Nobody knows if Leonard Fournette's going to play or not. Kind of a big deal because the Eagles' rush defense is pretty good again. Their offensive line is the best in the league. They have the number 1 rushing offense. And Jalen Hurts silently has looked pretty good ever since people decided he was going to be the starter for the future. And then he played bad against the Giants, and people thought, oh, no, never mind, I lied. He's back to being that guy from before the Giants game. So I think Philly has a pretty good shot. The issue is that there's that Tom Brady guy over on the other sideline, and, he he's pretty good at winning.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing, right? So we can handicap it, like you said. The running defense isn't as good as it was, and I think last year was really good for the Bucs. But a lot of the times, people are coming from behind a lot against the Bucs, and they're throwing the ball a lot of the time. So some of those numbers can be skewed. Now you have Vita Vea in there. Obviously, he's an elite run stopper, and then Ndamukong Suh, elite run stopper, elite player. So that definitely helps. But I think you nailed hit the head, or what is it? Hit the nail right on the head when you're talking about just how you expect this rushing game to attack him. Now, injuries, that'll play a factor in Tampa Bay. Apparently, a lot of guys are coming back. Fournette, Levante David, they're expected to play. So that should change the look of this Bucs defense. But did you go into this expecting that all those guys would play? Because that's what Bruce Arians said every single time. Like the moment they got injured, like, oh yeah, they're going to play in the playoffs.
Oh, he's playing. He's playing. And silently, just real quick, they better hope Levante David plays because Devin White is everybody's favorite linebacker in the league, but he is not nearly as good at run defense as we like to pretend.
I agree with your statement. You got number 12 on the other side. How can they make sure he's not Tom Brady? Now, the thing that's going to hurt the Eagles is their lack of true pass rush against Bucs O-line that is susceptible to certain things and certain stunts that you can do to kind of confuse them a little bit or jar them off a little bit. The Eagles aren't that complicated. Like they
don't blitz.
They don't blitz. They don't do a lot of things to confuse offensive lines. That's my biggest worry about this game is that they're not going to be able to speed up Brady, that they're not going to make him a little uneasy back there. Like, oh man, I don't want to step forward or I have to step to the side and shuffle to the side. Yes, there's no Antonio Brown. Yes, there's no Chris Godwin, but when he has so much time, he's going to be able to throw it to Tyler Johnson. He's going to be able to throw it to Scotty Miller. He's going to be able to find these windows because that's what he does.
Listen to what you're saying, though, and this goes into a different point, I guess, but it's relevant to not only this game, but their future in the playoffs. That sounded a lot like you were talking about the last year New England Patriots.
You're right.
Then it sounds like you're talking about the Tampa Bay Bucs, the ones we've come to know over the last couple of years, where it's a Harlem Globetrotter style, throw it off the backboard, they're dunking on people. Now it's like he can throw it to Scotty Miller and Jalen Darden, and it's like that's not the same. That is not the same thing.
It's not. That's a good point. So that's going to be an interesting game, and I think you said it to me, Tyson. Is like they're trying to sweep this game. Okay, kind of starting off Sunday. Eagles, Bucks should crush it. Very, very careful of just thinking Bucks are going to roll in this one. That's what Tyson are telling you right now, but you'll find out in due time this week. Moving on to what everybody's calling, the heavyweight matchup, right? 49ers at Cowboys. That's going to be at 4:40 Eastern on CBS, which is weird to have two NFC teams on CBS. It's pretty strange, but listen, you're going to be in your feels for this one. People who, like older people. Do you remember the Niners? Remember the Cowboys? You're going to be in your feels. Just harken back on the times of a better yesteryear, I guess. But
That was literally that's any other time. I feel like.
now you got a different looking teams. Honestly, with the Niners who just hammer you, and the Cowboys who are a little bit more that finesse kind of West
Isn't
Coast
that
passing
funny?
offense style.
Isn't that kind of
Yeah,
funny? I like
very.
that a lot.
Yeah, it's like they're the two, like what the Niners are today is what the Cowboys were, with Emmitt Smith just pounding you, and then the Niners throwing the ball around. Well, that's what the Cowboys like to do today. So it's interesting. And this is a good matchup, I think, on paper, though. When you look at strength, weakness versus weakness, I know you have a pretty strong feeling one way or the other about this game. Why don't you break it down for me, Tyson?
I wouldn't say it's a strong feeling, but I am saying it with conviction, which makes me feel better about it.
Okay.
That's a little trick. You could use that whenever you want. It works. I think San Francisco is going to win this game, and I think they're going to win this game off the strength of what I've been talking about since before the season started. The team that I thought was going to show up is still in there somewhere. They haven't broken all the way out. Dallas isn't exactly, like I said, they're a dream matchup for them, but that's among playoff teams. Obviously, there's nobody left that's playing that somebody's going to be like, I want to play them. If I have, the Colts would have chose the Jags, is what I'm trying to say. They wouldn't have said, let
Right.
me play the Cowboys. I just think the Dallas isn't consistent enough, and honestly is led by a bunch of guys who I've never seen do it. Mike McCarthy has one ring and a whole lot of shit the bed moments in the
Mm-hmm.
playoffs. And that ring was won on the strength of a defense that was very, very good at turning people over, a good quarterback, a good passing game. So in some regards, it's a little bit eerie to see him leading this Cowboys team. But in others, it's like, oh yeah, he also had good defenses. Aaron Rodgers a bunch of times didn't accomplish anything. We've seen Dak and Zeke 13-3, didn't even play in the NFC Championship game. On the flip side, we love to hammer Shanahan, right? But this is now a continued success with the same guys, the same scheme. And I think that they have a chance to do to Dallas what they did to Green Bay in the NFC Championship game a couple years ago and just run for 230 yards. And that's the game. Before you know it, it's over.
Yeah, I agree. But I think on the flip side here, too, analyzing on the opposite side is like the 49ers have to get after Dak Prescott
Have
because
to.
the Niners secondary could get shredded by these weapons. Now, Cooper a little banged up coming out of the Eagles game. CeeDee Lamb, we know what he's going to be. Michael Gallup, he's coming off of injury. But Cedric
I think
Wilson
he's
just
out.
emerged. Oh,
Isn't
Gallup's
Gallup
done for
out?
the year?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so there we go. So it's going to be Cedric Wilson. Bosa has to get home. Has to get home and make Dak feel him, or else I honestly think the Cowboys could shred up the 49ers defense.
It'll be interesting. I mean, I'm not the most confident in Josh Norman guarding CeeDee Lamb in certain situations one-on-one. It doesn't sound great, but I'm also not that excited about, if I'm a Dallas fan, of the way that they looked in week 18 against Philadelphia in the zone running scheme. Yeah, they killed them, but they also played starters the entire game, and we're playing a team not running any um, real. It was just all vanilla stuff, and the zone blocking scheme worked and worked well, and the Eagles were gaining huge chunks of yards running the ball. And now you have the same thing, but this one is for real. This is starters on starters. I think that this game is going to come down to how well is Dak going to play in the moment, and I'm going to lean on the on the side of Dallas is missing a timeout or something. at the end of the
The
game.
McCarthy special, man.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's great. I mean, listen, Dak's got to prove it. Like you said at the jump, man. I mean, the Niners, we've seen now there's guys missing, but we've seen this team, this coaching staff, this quarterback go to a Super Bowl, be winning the Super Bowl, probably should have won the Super Bowl. We haven't seen the Cowboys do any of that type of stuff. Like Dak Prescott hasn't done it. This O line that's so vaunted, what have they done? The defense, yeah, they're turning it over and turning teams over in the regular season, taking away all these picks, and that. Well, now people are more focused, and now they know your weaknesses on defense. Like that's all these coaches have been doing is watching Cowboys tape. It's just different, like you said. It's different. How can that defense be ball hawking? How can they capitalize on Jimmy G mistakes? Are they going to be able to turn over a ball carrier in this one? Like Elijah Mitchell and Debo, they don't really fumble. They're going to have to make these plays. And yeah, Niners have the experience, Cowboys don't. We'll see if that's a factor in this one. Steelers, Chiefs to round out Sunday. Honestly, not a very good game here, but 8:15 p.m. on NBC. Big Ben's potential last ride, unless you're going to buy into the fact that he could upset Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid in Arrowhead. But if not, well, let's say it can happen. I mean, for that to happen, Tyson, what do you expect? I mean, what do they need to do?
Go find the smartest guy you can. See if he knows how to build a time machine. And then go get 2005 Ben Roethlisberger. Because otherwise, you're just going on a long bus trip. And then you got to go back. Like this, I mean, look, they could win. Like, they could. But if this game plays out 100 times, how many do the Steelers win? 5? 10?
Yeah, 5 or 10.
Like the current Steelers versus the current Chiefs, not week 1 Steelers beat the Bills. We're all like, oh, maybe. Like the Ben Roethlisberger just threw it 55 times for 130 yards.
Yeah.
Like this is they're going to have to uncharacteristically score points, and they don't score points. Ben can't push the ball down the field. Chase Claypool is among the most overrated skill position players in the NFL at the moment. Deontay Johnson is really good. Najee Harris is really good. Pat Freiermuth is really good. Ben is not. Flip side, Pat Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Travis Kelce, Tyrann Mathieu,
Chris
Jones,
Melvin Ingram.
Yeah, this one is like, why isn't this Saturday morning? Like this should be on the same time as like PBS cartoons. Like they shouldn't even lead into another game with this. This isn't going to make people want to watch more football.
Well, that's why they did on Sunday night. They're like, God, just go to bed.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing awake?
Yeah, exactly. That's actually a good guy move by the league.
Thank you, NBC. You guys are saving us. There's one way for the Steelers to win. They need to turn the Chiefs over. Like, if there's 0 turnovers in this game, there is 0% chance they win. Like, they have to force strip sacks, getting after Mahomes.
Like 5 of them, though.
I was literally going to say 5, but I'm like, that's unrealistic. But then you think about, like, the Chiefs earlier in the season, just like, it was a yard sale with the football. Like, they were giving away to everybody. Now they've tightened it up. Mahomes is tighter with the ball. They're not putting the ball fumble-wise on the ground as much anymore. Steelers are going to have to make that happen. Like, TJ Watt's going to have to wreak havoc. Linebackers are going to have to cover. Linebackers are going to have to tackle. And then secondary, can you just at least stay in front of somebody for 60 minutes? That's what they're asking before your pass rushers can get home. We'll see.
They could do all that and lose 3-0.
Exactly. They could lose all that and lose. Exactly. Like, they could get the 5 turnovers. They could do all that.
Yeah.
And they could still get blown out of the stadium. Like, I agree with you. But they got to have extra possessions so that the offense that will inevitably sputter and have 3 and outs, they would have more chances to get points on the board. But man.
I mean, this is as close to like last year. I mean, every year there's a wild card team that gets in that we're all like, oh, that's the weakest one. But you can realistically talk your way in to figure out a way they can put up a fight if things go well for them. Like if you think Washington last year against Tampa Bay, It's like, okay, if they're just physical, run the ball, don't turn it over, and are opportune or take advantage of opportunities, they can keep it close. They did that, and in this game, I've racked my brain, and that's like the only thing I can think of is if they get like 2 pick sixes and a strip sack that they can like return for a touchdown. And even then, I'm like, well, they'd have to score like 10 points on offense. I don't know if they could do that.
I know it. Najee Harris, he's gonna have to be big in this one. We talk about controlling the line of scrimmage. The Steelers' offensive line isn't very good. They're gonna have to play their best game of the year here, or else they are going to get smoked. Like Najee Harris needs to have lanes to run the ball, and you need to block for Ben, or else his last game he might be leaving in a wheelchair or something. I mean,
One of
you
his
know.
classic walking boots.
Well, I think I'm already writing that in. I mean, maybe if he has two and he can't walk, he's going to go wheelchair route. I'm not sure, but yeah, we're disparaging a legend on his way out of the door. What are we doing, Tyson? What have we become?
I've been doing it to him his whole career. I don't feel bad at all.
Yeah, you haven't changed. You stayed the same.
Yeah, you can't get mad at me now.
Yeah, I'm the same dude.
Yeah.
All right, last game. Now, I'm intrigued by this one a lot. I think the majority of people should be as well. But on Monday night to wrap up everything, Cardinals at Rams, 8:15 Eastern on ESPN. Cardinals go back into the Rams where they blew them out the first week, their first meeting that they played. And the Rams go into Arizona, classic revenge game spot, and just dumped all over them. Now, here's for all the marbles here in this grudge match. Arizona goes back to LA. And we discussed in the last pod, Tyson, that might actually be better for Arizona because they're better on the road. What are you expecting in this game? I mean, the Cardinals have been horrible down the stretch. It feels like the Rams have been good, but like you look at the scores, like have they or like what a two teams that I have no clue who they are facing off in this division game nonetheless. Like I don't even know what to expect really.
And it's not easier because when you look at normally this situation, you can be well, one of them has this guy behind center. They both have like maybe two of the five most talented guys in the league, but they're playing each other for their first playoff wins, right?
Yeah.
So it's like I've hardly even seen these guys in these situations. I don't know what at all to expect, and this game's going to be really fun. Is DeAndre Hopkins supposed to play?
He should be. He's expected to.
Okay.
I haven't heard a word since.
I
But
think that's going to be huge for Arizona. But it's going to come down to really how well Stafford plays or for LA, just if you look at them throughout the year, he's thrown the most pick sixes in the league, I think, by 2 or 3. He turns the ball over at inopportune times, and a lot of times they're bad turnovers that lead to either touchdowns coming the other way or huge returns. If he doesn't do that, this team is unbeatable. Like if they protect the ball and they score their 30 points a game and let their defense do their thing, you can't do anything with the LA Rams. The problem is that's not always the team that gets off the plane. Sometimes, it's like these guys, like, good luck. These guys are going to get boat raced in the playoffs. Cardinals have looked almost the exact same. Started out, it was like, oh, this isn't for real. Oh, they're pretty good. Oh, wow, they're great. And then it was like, oh, they suck again. And then they go out and they beat contenders. So I have no idea. It's going to be high scoring, I think.
right, like I think I know one thing, and that there'll be a lot of points in this one. My biggest thing when I analyze this is Kyler Murray. I think he's the biggest wild card in this game. I think he's the classic front runner quarterback. When everything's going well, oh Kyler, everyone's so good, and yeah, everything's great in Kyler land. And as soon as it gets tough, I mean, you can visibly see it. Like the kid just crumbles. Like he just can't handle adversity. And this is the playoffs, man. Like there's going to be adverse times in these games. There's going to be adverse times in those 60 minutes. Like you have to respond. What I've seen so far, I don't know if he can, especially against a team like the Rams. I mean, they're all in to win. Like they are all in to win this tournament. I I I have a weird feeling that the Cardinals are going to perform well in this game. But it's hard for me to say that the Rams, they know what they got all these guys for, and that not everybody's uber focused on making it to a champ. You know what I mean? Like it's just got that feel to it.
I have a weird feeling that the Rams are going to come out flat. And so
Man,
if our weird
God.
feelings, go together, then this one
Then the
could
Cardinals
get
gonna blow them out.
this one could get ugly. No, but
Woof.
I do think that pretty much everything you said is true. But I am worried about LA just with kind of the moment being too big for some of these guys. Like this is a bunch of guys that have come, with the exception of Von Miller. It's like a bunch of guys who've never won anything playing for a guy who's never won anything in LA, where they're famous and they're on TV every weekend and they're setting records and they're fun to watch. But at the end of the day, it's like you kind of gotta win one, or else it's gonna be like, remember when Matt Stafford was on the Rams? Oh yeah, that was a weird 5 years, or you know
Right.
what I mean. So it's got to be you got to win one. It's got to be quick. It should be this year. If they're going to win one, you'd think this year would be their chance. Cooper Cup is killing everybody. Odell Beckham, these kind of things don't just happen.
Yeah. I mean, it's gotta be sooner than later, right, with
Mhm.
Stafford?
Well, we'll see. How many trips to Cabo can him and McVay take?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe McVay will be on a Cabo trip with another quarterback next year.
He wouldn't dare.
He wouldn't dare that to his boy.
Yeah.
Well, I can't wait, Ty. I mean, this should be Super Wild Card Weekend should be electric.
I hate that name, man.
It should be electric, though. We're gonna have the Eagles,
Our Super Eagles,
our Super Eagles. We got your Cowboys.
Super Cowboys.
We got my Bills, and we got the Cardinals and the Rams. So we have no clue what to expect.
No, that, and then I mean Joe Burrow making his first playoff appearance. Like, how's he going to look? We have a pretty good idea. Mac Jones, how's he going to look? It's there's a lot of questions, and this year feels unique in the sense that there's a lot of guys playing the quarterback position that are new here. Like we saw on Monday night, Georgia finally got to sit at the big boy table, but they had
Yeah,
to beat the big boys to get there. Like if Joe Burrow wants to sit at that table with Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers and those guys, he's going to have to beat the Titans in the second round. You got to do those things to get to that level, and there's a couple guys that have the opportunity to do that.
for sure. I can't wait. I'm gonna be post up. I'm not missing a second in this Super Wild Card Weekend.
I'm going to miss I don't know how long I'll nap during the second half of the Chiefs Steelers game, but
Nap, you're
oh,
gonna be
oh,
sleeping. You're gonna be done for the count.
I mean, I can't. Watching that offense is hard, man.
Oh, it
I'd
is.
rather just go to bed.
I know. Dream about good offense.
So, hey, I mean, shout out Ben, but I think, yeah, I don't know. We'll talk more about it on the gambling podcast, but I'm not taking any player props from the Steelers.
Yeah, Tyson alluded to it. Appreciate you guys listening to this one. We want to give it a lot more football stuff. Next pod we do before these games start is going to be a gambling podcast. We are going to give out our picks. We're going to combine it on a massive little player prop parlay. That's going to be awesome. So you guys can root for that with us. I'm looking forward to that one. I think Tyson are going to be on opposite sides of a lot of these games here. We've overlapped a lot in the past when we do this. I think we're going to have a little mano-a-mano action in this one. So that's going to be exciting. So I can't wait for that.
Yeah, I mean, if you pay attention to our run your pool pick'em thing, then the one-on-one thing might not go as great for me. Where did you finish in that?
I finished first out of our group, but I want to say third or fourth overall.
Third.
I'll have to
Yeah.
check
Not
for
not
absolute
too
sure.
bad.
No, I'll take it. I'll take it.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, like and subscribe to the roundtable. Whether you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or watching us on YouTube, make sure to like it, share it with your friends, leave comments, ask us questions, DM us, and you can do that on social media on the Instagram for the page @_ the roundtable pod _ We do answer them on the show. Last episode we did 2 answers. We got a few more that we'll have to roll through. But you can also hit me up, follow me on Twitter @bwakai, BWAKAI, and same thing for Tyson on Instagram @Tyson Gentry. So contact us, man. We're trying to build a community. We said 2022 is going to be a big year for growth. We want you guys to grow with us. So make sure to share it with us and share it with your friends who might like us.
And go Birds.
Go Birds. We'll have some picks out. But until then, everybody, peace.